All right, hello everyone. We are at Heavenly Moto in Hollister, California. It's my buddy Jared's track. It's an awesome track. It's like over 2 minutes. Gonna run a little test on clutches. So making a long story short, I've always ran the manual clutches, and I was out riding at my dad's house. We had a little turn track, and my buddy Big Joe, he's about 240 pounds, said, "Hey, try my bike out. It's got an auto clutch." Bike was way oversprung. He's about 8 steps stiffer on the rear, 4 steps stiffer on the front springs. And I rode his bike, and I felt pretty good on it, carrying good corner momentum. It was a little stiff. And so I went back and I checked my Lit Pro data. And I discovered that with the Radiuscx in his bike, the auto clutch, over my manual clutch, I was pulling 2 to 5 miles an hour faster in the middle of these corners. So I thought about it, went out and bought a Radiuscx. I purchased all my own parts myself. The only thing that I get for free is helmets. Thank you, LS2, really appreciate it. But aside from that, I gotta buy everything. I get some things at a discount. You know, when I had to buy the clutch, I had to put out my own money for it. So I'm not gonna buy stuff that I don't think works for my bike because it's coming out of my pocket just like everybody else. I'm a vet pro. I raced professionally when I was younger. I used to get free stuff when I was younger, but I really don't anymore. So I want to make sure that products are usable and people like the products they're using. I have 2 bikes here. One is a 21 Works Edition. The other is a 22 stock 450. They're both 450s. Both have Dunlop tires on them. They both have the same exact suspension valving by my buddy Barron Suspension. Same gearing, 1452 gearing. Dunlop's in the front. I even put the stock pipe back on the Works Edition just so it kind of evens it out. But I would say power advantage is going to go to the Works Edition with the manual clutch as of now until I ride them. It has the ported head, so, and it has the coated suspension, so maybe the suspension may work a little bit better because of the coatings. But I wanted to make it as fair as I could. I want to see if that data that I got out of my dad's turn track equates to other tracks and actually shows up that the Radiuscx might be faster mid-corner, and see how it works out. And if it's not, it's not. But if it is, I want to know, and I want hard data to show that that is faster. It's not a subjective feeling of, oh, it makes me feel great. I think it's faster. I want to know it's faster. If I'm going to run stuff, I want to know that it works for the bike, and the stopwatch doesn't lie. So I'm going to run some tests today and see if it actually makes me faster through my corners. Thanks. All right, so I got done with the first session. I went out first. I did a warm up on both bikes for about 5 laps. No recording on that. First session, I went out on the Works Edition with the manual clutch in it. My fastest lap time was a 2:23.3. I did 5 laps, hard as I could go. And then I went out on the auto clutch, the Radiuscx. And my fastest lap times, every single lap I did beat my fastest lap time on the manual clutch. I did a 2:23, a 2:22.6, a 2:22.7, and a 2:22.3. So, you know, you can take my word for it, but later on what we are gonna do is try to dive into why it's faster. Is it mid-corner speed? My buddy Tony here from Moto Potpourri, he's been watching me, and he says that the corner speed on the Radiuscx is visually faster. So we'll break it down. The data I got when I rode my buddy Big Joe's bike with the Radiuscx was mid-corner speed. That's where I was gaining it. And anybody that races knows how big and important mid-corner speed is. So we'll break it down later. And I got 2 more sessions. I'm going to do 1 more on the manual clutch and 1 more on the auto clutch. So I'm even riding the auto clutch at the roughest part of the day. The end, I'll make it the last one. Power-wise, the Works Edition definitely does have more power. I can feel that up the hill. But this corner I can corner better and exit corners, and I'm actually going faster even though it doesn't have the top end work that one does, just because of the exit speed. It makes a big difference. It's all about exit speed. Okay.
Walking along this sidewalk, I begin to ruminate because of that.
All right, I got done with all the sessions. I did 4 sessions. I did 1 on each bike. I started off with the manual clutch and then went to the auto clutch. And like I've already said, I was a second faster on the auto clutch. I went back to the manual. The track was getting a little blown out, a little rough, a little more difficult. and I was struggling a little bit on it, and I ran a 224. Got back on the auto clutch, felt pretty good, and ran a 221. So 3 seconds on an outdoor national track is huge. If you can gain 3 seconds, I gained 3 seconds, and it may be my riding style, it may be the way I ride, maybe I just don't know how to use a clutch, I don't know. But I've ridden for over 20 years. The benefits I see, there's a lot of off-camber corners with very soft berms. I can come in, drift slide with my rear end with the rear brake, and I don't have to pull in the clutch. And the problem with pulling in the clutch is we're human. So, we're not going to pull it in exactly the same point every single time, as to where I could come into these berms, drift slide my rear end, not pull in the clutch, and only pop the clutch on exit. So I think I was gaining time there. The blown out berms, instead of pulling in my clutch when I was making mistakes, I knew in my head the bike wasn't going to stall, and when I made a mistake, I didn't have to worry about stalling. So these blown out kind of powdery corners, I was able to slide the bike around better and corner better. I just had more, I could focus on my technique, focus on my form. The big downhill, I also noticed that it had a little more freewheel, and I wasn't worried about braking so hard down the hill because there's a tabletop at the bottom that I would stall my bike off the tabletop. So I was able to charge into that downhill faster. Now, right now, these are just the subjective feelings. These are the things that I thought made me feel faster. My buddy Tony said that my corner speed was better with the auto clutch. My lap times are better. Later on, we'll break down the Lit Pro and see where it actually was. Who knows? Maybe it was because I was going up the hill faster. I don't know. But to me, it feels pretty good, and pretty happy with putting it in so far. All right, so this track here, it's really long, a lot of uphills, a lot of downhills, a lot of off cambers, a lot of different kind of terrain. That's why I wanted to use this track. It pretty much had everything, every kind of different corner, powder corners, hard pack corners. This part's a big uphill, as you can see, 0.0, 0.1. I'm not really gaining any time, but when I hit the first corner, I go from 0.1, 0.2, so I gain a tenth. Next corner, kind of even and back out, but then I pull 2 to 3 tenths in the next corner. This corner kind of evens out. This corner right here was a downhill into a left-hander where I really felt the auto clutch shined. I could drift slide my rear end and just power out of it. So at this point, I've only hit 4 or 5 corners, and I'm already up over a second over the manual clutch. And as you can see, I'm not really gaining the time down the straightaways. Right here, we're coming up to a long straightaway section with a little tiny switchback in it. But we start out at 1.5, 1.6, and then I'm pretty sure at the end of this, we end out at 1.6. And it's a huge straightaway section, a few jumps in the middle. I'm at 1.7 back to 1.6. So, I mean, you can tell on the straightaways, you're not going to gain a ton, but it's not losing anything to the manual clutch power-wise. If anything, I gained a tenth of a second. But then we get back into the corners. See, I end at 1.6. Get back into the corners, I gain another couple tenths of a second, 2 to 3 tenths of a second. Then it's, evens out down the straightaway, and then again, hitting the right-hander, gain another couple tenths. And so now I'm up over 2 seconds. And so when you're riding, to me, every little corner, if you can gain a tenth in every corner, that can separate you from getting 6th place in your class to 1st place in your class. Here's a long straightaway section. You can see we stay pretty even. I gain a tenth, so maybe the auto clutch does have an advantage on the straightaways. I don't know, but I'm not gaining as much on the straightaways as I am through the corners. Every corner, 2 tenths of a second. And when I reviewed the Lit Pro, you can look at the miles per hour down there. Some corners I was up from 2 miles per hour faster to 5 miles per hour faster, which is huge. And it would carry that momentum a lot better than I would on the manual clutch. So coming down the hills, I'm up over 3 seconds, almost 3 seconds over the manual clutch. People are looking for tenths of a second. I ride at the local pro, vet pro level, and 3 seconds for me is absolutely huge. So it's a great comparison, and it shows you how much time you would be pulling with the auto clutch.
Across the street, recalls of a memory.